Okay, everyone, I'm here with Sarah Kleiner, also known as Carnivore Yogi. She is a certified nutrition consultant and a certified quantum health coach. Welcome to the show, Sarah. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me, Danny. I always love following you on social media and just keeping up with you. You're just such a wonderful person. So I was super excited to come and chat with you today.
Yeah, right back at you. I feel like I saw your page right away when I kind of came into this space because I also come from a yogic background. I was a certified yoga instructor. And as I was going through my training, there were a lot of plant-based people around me. So when I saw carnivore yogi, I was like, yes, someone else who's, so aligned. And it's like we can, kind of sift through some dogma and find it's apparent that we've done a lot of work in terms of what works best for our biology because it's easy to listen to, oh, everyone around here is doing plant-based. It was very big in Miami where I was, and it just never resonated with me. I came from the paleo camp. So I would love to hear your story. I know that you have a really great health history story that kind of got you into the space. So why don't you share with us, your journey and what kind of brought you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I became a yoga teacher about 12 years ago. It was just out of necessity. My daughter had been diagnosed with autism, and I had quit working, left the corporate world, and I was completely just falling apart. And so I had found yoga. She's 14 now, and I had found yoga when she was a baby because it just helped me to deal with stress. And I just was drawn to the practice and loved it. And so I became a teacher because I was like, if I can help other people to feel this kind of peace and this kind of calm, especially parents who have kids with special needs, like I was just on fire. And
Yeah.
so I became a yoga teacher, and I thought, okay, so I want to do this like ahimsa, which is non-harming. And that involves I'm going to be a vegan. And so I did vegan for 2 years, almost 2.5 years. And at first I felt really good. And, I've had weight problems my whole life. I've talked a lot on other podcasts about the fact that I have lost 100 pounds 3 times in my life. So I definitely have struggled very hard with my weight. And I lost 100 pounds after I had my daughter. And I was still like just trying to keep the baby weight off. And so went vegan and was like, oh, I'm so skinny. Like, this is awesome. I
Mhm.
was like, I've never been this skinny in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but the health went downhill quickly. And it was one of my yoga teachers. And again, it was about 2.5 years of me doing vegan. And I was trying to do everything. I was soaking my beans, I was soaking my nuts, I was like soaking everything and trying to do it the right way. And I was supplementing without all the things, and it just wasn't working for me. I am an O negative blood type. And so, if you read into the blood type diet, which there's some controversy around it, O's should be meat eaters. I mean,
I'm
that's,
O positive. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I never had
yeah.
thought about living without meat. I just kind of reflected on that. I'm like, wow, I just have always been, and I wasn't even super into meat as when I was younger, but as I got older, it's just, yeah, I could never think about living without it. So yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I would like beg to go to the steakhouse. There was this place here. It's not around anymore. It's called the Ryan's Steakhouse. It's kind of like a, buffet type of place. But when you're a kid, you think that those places are awesome.
Oh yeah.
But I would like beg. I'm like, please, can we go to the Big R? That's what I called it. And I wanted to go to the steakhouse like all the time. So I loved meat as a kid. It was just natural. But I was really trying to do the yoga teacher thing the right way. I really want to do it the right way. And so one of my yoga teachers, I was doing an advanced pranayama training, which is a breathing training. At the end of the training, he took me aside. He's like, look, I've been watching you the last 5 days. I know what you're trying to do. You do not look good and you do not look healthy. If you keep this up, this vegan thing that you're doing, you're not going to be able to be of service to your community, to your family, to anyone. And that's what yoga is. And that's what you're trying to do is be of service and give love. And if you're not taking care of your health, if you're not eating animal foods, which I really strongly think you need, then you are not going to be able to be of service of anyone, and you're performing harming on yourself. So if you really want to do the ahimsa thing, you need to eat meat. And I was like, oh, I felt so relieved.
Yeah.
because I had been thinking like, oh, this vegan thing is just, I wasn't feeling good. I was getting a lot of injuries in both my shoulders. They would blow out. Like I was trying to do chaturangas and handstands and crow and and my
Yeah.
shoulders would blow out and one would hurt. And then I
Oh
get
my
body
gosh.
work and then the other one would hurt. And then I was just always injured. And I was walking around trying to adjust and teach, just injured all the time. And it's
Uh-huh.
really common. I taught, now the pandemic is here. I quit teaching in the studio all the time. I used to teach like, 10, 12 classes a week before the pandemic all around town. And I did that for, over a decade. And yoga teachers, I get to know a lot of them. I'm friends with a lot of them. They're always freaking injured. and
Yes.
most of them refuse to eat meat. And I didn't really make that correlation until now, all these years later. But yeah, I was just, so I quit the vegan thing. That was about 2014. And I started doing a little bit more paleo, but I would just, I just kind of flip flopped a little bit, but I was at least eating meat. And then in 2019, I started having a lot of health issues, just like a lot of eczema, a lot of joint
Mm.
pain. My IBS was really bad. I had been to the doctor and they're like, eat more fiber pills. Like, this is what you need. And I was just, the gas and the bloating was just awful. And I was sleeping out on the couch a lot of nights because I would eat something and it would trigger this horrible gas. And I couldn't sleep in the bedroom with my husband because the gas would literally keep him awake all night. And
Oh
so
my
it was just,
gosh.
it
What a
was
mess.
awful.
Yeah.
It
My
was
gosh.
awful. And I was friends with Dr. Rimka. She actually lives pretty close by here.
I
And
was wondering if you guys lived close.
she's
Yeah.
literally like 2 or 3 miles from here, from where I
Oh,
live.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, which is cool. And so I had reached out to her on Facebook. I was like, the heck do I do? And she was like, look, I could take you in as a patient and do a bunch of testing on you and it costs you a bunch of money. Or you could just try the carnivore diet. She's like, I've been doing it for 5 months and I love it and it's going great. And I think it might kind of get rid of a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with right now. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I was at that point where I couldn't go to yoga and practice the way that I wanted to practice anymore because my joints were hurting so bad. And so I said, fine. And I was eating tons of nuts and, even though it was like paleo, I
Yeah.
was like, I'd sit in front of the TV at night and eat almonds and like dried mangoes or whatever, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh my gosh, you sound just like me. I feel like it's so common to take all your quote bad habits that you had from me from the standard American diet and just transform it into whatever
Hmm.
diet that you have. So it's like the snacking, or it's like what
Hmm.
food can I eat that like I could get a crunch from? So you'll be crunching on nuts or eating. It's like, oh, this is dried mango. It's healthy sugar and it's
Hmm.
paleo, so it's fine. And I can't tell you how many that is, I relate to that so much because that was
Yeah,
me
the
too.
kombucha and the
Yeah.
nuts and so
Hmm.
once I cut all that stuff out, within just a couple weeks, all my joint pain was gone, my bloating and gas was
Amazing.
gone, and I was back at the yoga. It was a shala. I was doing Ashtanga at the time,
Ooh,
and so it was pretty
pretty
intense.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I loved it. I don't do it anymore because I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't need that sort of intensity in my life anymore. But I
Yeah.
did, I did do it for a year solid where I was going, 5 days a week, except for the moon days, and was starting to do second series. I'd gotten through primary, was doing second series.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I loved it, but that's a different story of why I don't really like to do love to do intense stuff anymore. I have to kind of take stuff down. But I was back doing Ashtanga within a couple of weeks
Wow.
of starting carnivore. And I remember like sitting in the room during my soar, everyone's kind of doing their own practice and we're just in this big sweaty room. And there's a lot you can just kind of think because no one's telling you what to do. You're just doing your practice. And I was like, I've been to so many vegan potlucks with these people. Like everyone in here is a vegan and I just want to tell them all like I've been doing the carnivore diet for a couple weeks and that's the only reason why I'm here. And then
That's
I
so
got this
funny.
idea to like create a social media handle as a joke of being like the carnivore yogi. I was like, how funny would that be? Of like, the only reason I can do yoga is because I'm doing carnivore. And so I created my social media profile like as a total joke. And it was resonating with people. And
Yeah,
now here it is today, like 40,000 followers. I'm like,
amazing.
okay, so I guess there was something that people could relate to with that story. So yeah.
Yeah, wow. That is so interesting. And I think it's great and also so brave to put yourself out there as carnivore yogi because a lot of people in yoga, like I said, are from the plant-based world. And so I'm sure that you get your fair share of, unwanted comments on on Instagram.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I have controls now on my Instagram so that you can't comment unless you follow me. There's certain words that if you say, because I
Mhm.
started like a lot of vegans or yoga people would kind of all say the same thing when they comment. I don't know if they do that on your page. It's like
I
the
don't get a
same
lot of hate,
regurgitate.
luckily. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's good.
Maybe it's because I have those controls in and I don't see it, but yeah, I feel like I also try not to, if I do say anything about plant-based, then they come out. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes it's not even worth it for me to call it out because I don't want that hate. And I feel like the people on my page know where I'm at. So yeah.
Yeah, it's, yeah, I get totally what you're saying. There's sometimes when I'm like, I could do a post on this, but do I really want to poke the bear at this time?
Totally, totally. So
Yeah.
after you found all this healing with carnivore and you started, making your social media, is that when you went to school to sort of pursue nutrition?
I started learning a lot that first year that I was doing carnivore.
Yeah.
I just kind of immersed myself in as much as I could, reading and podcast and learning. And I actually went to school the following year. So it was the second year
Yeah.
that I was doing carnivore that I decided to be certified as a certified nutrition consultant, and actually get legit certification behind my name and
Yeah,
started
that's great.
working more with clients. Yeah.
So cool. And so then what happened with your health? Because I know that now you're sort of into some different things. You've mentioned to me, I'm just tired of talking about food. So, and this is also why I want to bring you on the podcast, because I feel like so many people, when they're starting out, just like you and me, we get really into the food because that's
Yep.
hugely, hugely important. It's mostly what it's about. You can't be healing eating a diet of tons of processed food or foods that are inflammatory vegetable oils. So food is hugely important, but oftentimes I feel like so many people get stuck there because it's what
Mm-hmm.
we see, it's what we can control, it's what we see all over the internet, but there's a lot more that goes into having optimal health than just food. So can you talk to us a little bit more about this next part of your journey and why you're tired of talking about food?
Well, I think I kind of exhausted myself with trying different things to, accomplish a result. And with carnivore, I found and I was started to do a lot of fasting. I started finding that I was causing issues with my hormones, from doing too much fasting and putting my body under too much stress with just just trying to do the same thing over and over again. So then I went into this mode of like no fasting and doing really high fat carnivore, like the,
I remember
ketogenic
that.
macros. Yeah, I went through that phase and I just freaking exhausted myself. And then I went through like, okay, I'm going to try to reintroduce some foods and see if that helps. And, what ended up happening in 2020 is that I put on about 20 pounds. Um, and I was just at the end of my rope, frustrated because I was trying everything. I was like, well, let me do fasting, let me do no fasting, let me do high fat, let me try high protein, let me see if I add in some vegetables, if that helps. And it was like, didn't matter what I was really doing with the food, that 20 pounds was just there.
You
And
sound
so,
like so many people who come to see me. I can't that story is so it's like as old as time now because I feel like so many people are experiencing that and they're just using these dietary levers to try
mhm,
to control it and it's like nothing really happens. Maybe a
yep.
little bit, but then it kind of goes back to where it was, or maybe you get 2 pounds off or whatever. But again, plateau is you're just confronted with this plateau.
Yeah, exactly. And then they were coming to me too. They were coming to consult with me. And I'm like, how is this happening? It's happening to me. And then I'm talking to all these women and even men too that are just utterly stuck. And I know that they're not going out eating donuts. I know, and
Mhm.
I didn't gain the 20 pounds eating donuts. I gained the 20 pounds because I quit fasting and I was going really high fat. And then I quit teaching, all around town. I was teaching 10 or 12 classes a week. And I taught in a couple of gyms where I get free memberships and like heavily discounted personal training. So I went from being like ridiculously active to not active and no fasting and high fat and pandemic and staying indoors because I was fearful. And boom, there's 20 pounds. And
Yeah.
I didn't even, and I was like pissed because I didn't even eat any sugar. I was like, well, I wish
Right.
I had at least had something that would, warrant this, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I was getting the people so many people were coming to me that are having the same story and they're so frustrated. And so that's when I started working with Dr. Courtney Hunt and also started studying a lot of Dr. Jack Kruse's work. And Dr. Hunt, she doesn't talk about it a lot, but she did, I know, study under Dr. Kruse. And so a lot of what she says is influenced with this whole light magnetism water. And she says light mitochondria DNA. It's very similar, a lot of it. And so when I started working with Dr. Hunt, she was like, I need you every morning going out and looking at the sunrise with bare eyes every day, no ifs, ands, or buts. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Like,
I'm
seriously,
like,
you're not going to tell
and
me to
that's,
change my macros or, it's not a
yeah,
carb up. It's not a fast. Okay.
right. I'm like, and that's going to help me how? Like,
Yeah.
okay. And
And
at
does it
first I
have to
just
be the
was,
sunrise or can it be like 8 a.m.?
right. No, she's wants
Okay.
sunrise, because and we can talk about this more, but
Sure.
the light from sunrise is different from the light at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Sunrise versus UVA light. It's two different spectrums.
Okay.
And so, yeah, she was like, I want you doing the sunrise. And, then a lot of stuff that I was already doing. She wanted me to do ketosis. Obviously, she wanted me fasting a little bit more and I was taking some supplements that she recommended. And at that same time I just kept on going deeper and deeper into this light rabbit hole. And again, I got this really awesome opportunity to have Dr. Jack Kruse on my podcast, and then I met someone that had lived with him and studied with him, Dr. Corey Gasvini, and he came on my podcast. We became friends, and I've just connected with all these really amazing quantum people. And it's been life changing because when I actually committed to doing sunrise every day, and my vitamin D, when Dr. Hunt had me check it, was only like a 33. It
Mm.
was low. And I thought my vitamin D is fine because I live in Atlanta and, there's plenty of light here, whatever. I'm outside, no, it was a 33. And so it was my mission. Dr. Hunt was like, I need you doing sunrise. And then I want you getting sun. I need you to get that vitamin D up. And so I was like, all right, so that's my mission this last summer, to just get sun on my skin. So I use the D-Minder app. I want people to you don't want to just go out in the middle of the day. If you haven't seen sunrise, if you haven't seen the UVA rays, you need to condition your eyes and your skin for the UVB rays. And
Mm.
so it's not, you don't want to just be willy-nilly about it and just go out in the middle of the day, because that's how people get burned and that's how people can damage their skin. But use the D-Minder app to tell me how long to go out there,
How
and then
long do you go
precondition.
out to make 10,000 IUs, or how, like, is
As
there a
long as the
set time?
D-Minder app tells me I can without burning. That's what I did. I put
Oh,
in
okay.
I would put in my Fitzpatrick skin type, and it will change as you get darker. You make more melanin in your skin throughout the summer. I could stay out longer and longer, but at the beginning of the summer, I could really only stay out 15 minutes. Then it would D-Minder kind of knew, okay, she's out yesterday, she can stay out a little bit longer. And it built up my solar callus in a way that I didn't even burn once last year.
Wow, that's
And
great.
by the end of the summer, my vitamin D was like over 100. Yeah, with no
Wow.
supplements. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's probably, I know it's not that high now because it's December.
Hmm.
When I tested it in October, it had gone to like an 82. So I'm using my Sparity lamp. So I'm hoping to keep it, 60s, 70s during the winter. And then once, spring, summer hits, I'll be back out again. But I lost 30 pounds from changing my relationship with light. And I really did not do a lot nutritionally to change. Honestly, I stayed keto. Dr. Hunt did have me do one carb refeed day a week, which I resisted at first, but then I started doing it and it was helpful. Now that it's winter, I'm not doing any carb refeeding at all. I'm just staying more keto carnivore. Um, but those are the things that I changed and just saw a bigger difference than taking like this supplement and changing macros to have this much fat and this much protein and this much, like all that stuff. Just, it didn't do what everyone says it's going to do. But the stuff I did with light was like magic.
That is so incredible. I mean, to lose 30 pounds by changing your relationship with light, I mean, incredible. So can you tell us more about like what your light exposure looks like throughout the day and then why this is important? So you started talking to us about getting the sunrise light into your eyes first thing when you wake up. And what are, you started talking about UVA, UVB. So can you dive into this because I'm completely at scratch with what I know about this stuff. So
Yeah. So, we always think about the sun. People say, I'm going to get vitamin D, and they think they can just get it at any time of day. You can, and it depends on the latitude you're in. Here in Atlanta, technically, I can get vitamin D, but it's like, it's like this, it's like rainy and kind of dark for the next couple of months here. So I really can't get a lot of vitamin D here.
yeah.
But vitamin D typically is only made between, around 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you can use that D Minder app to see when there's vitamin D available in your area. Some people, it's not going to be available again until like March or April. You're there in Florida, so you can still get it.
Yeah, right now I'm looking at my app and it says it's 12:05 p.m. So it's noon and the index is 4, which is pretty low.
Yep.
But it'll be 4 for the rest of the week. And then over the weekend, the max it's showing is 5. So
Yep.
yeah, we can definitely still make vitamin D here in Orlando, Florida. So that's great for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to stay out a little bit longer when the UV is that low. But,
Exactly.
most people that are listening right now at this time of year are probably not getting any D.
Yep.
But there's still beneficial, reasons why you'd want to go out and get light. And that's to set your circadian rhythm. And so the reason we go out for sunrise and we don't want to look at our phones first is because the intensity of the sun at sunrise is about 1700 kelvins, right? The intensity of our phone is about 5,700 to 6,000 kelvins. And the way that our body starts turning off melatonin, we still have melatonin in our bodies for about the first hour that we wake up, but we want to turn the pineal gland off and turn the endocrine system on and start to have cortisol to come online. But we don't want cortisol to come on in this like crazy abrupt way. Because we could, we talk about how bad cortisol is, having high cortisol. We don't want to wake up and just have this like huge shoot of cortisol coming in. And so giving your body that strong signal, going outside and allowing your eyes, your bare eyes, no sunglasses, no glasses, no contacts, to see the sun rising and to get that intensity of, that 1700 kelvins of the sun coming up, tells your body, let's stop making melatonin. Let's have cortisol come online in a very gradual way. Then when you get to those UVA rays, that's usually between 8 and 10 a.m., that's when your body actually starts turning on hormones to make melatonin for that night. That's when you make dopamine, serotonin, tryptophan, tyrosine, all those hormones that's when you make them by looking at that UVA light. And so it's like a cascade effect. You have the sunrise that tells your body, let's start making cortisol in a very gradual, non-stressful way. And then you get that UVA light so that if people have trouble sleeping, I'm like, I need you sunrise and I need you doing the UVA light, because that's what's going to tell your body actually that morning to make melatonin for that night. And so, yeah, that's in a simple way, and I probably screwed it up a little bit, but in a simple way, that is why we need to be outside for sunrise. And that's why I now eat breakfast within 30 minutes of sunrise, because again, it's a strong signal to my body. I do usually a carnivore meal every morning. I'll do my breakfast casserole and sometimes a spoonful of salmon roe to get that DHA, especially since it's winter. Helps me to preserve my vitamin D levels a bit more, but I really give my body that strong signal to start the day. And I feel better. My mood is so much better. I'm so much more sharper mentally. Like my husband and we hike a lot on the weekends now, which is another offshoot of this whole, circadian biology influence on my life, is that we go hiking all the time now. And my husband and I were hiking and he was like, you are smarter. All of a sudden you're just like sharper. Like what in the world? I'm like, it's the
Wow.
sun. I can't really say that it's any supplement or any dietary change that I made. I know that it is my brain and my eyes, my skin getting the correct signal from the sun. And that's what's making me, quote unquote, smarter, sharper.
I love it. And I love that. So, okay, we saw there was a post, I think that we both commented on or that you shared. And someone said that if you're in the car, because I picture a lot of people like maybe they can see sunrise because it's before they go to work, but then that 8 to 10 a.m. sunshine, maybe they're not able to be outside like we are who have our own businesses and we work from home,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are working from home. So this is definitely something a little bit more doable for a lot of people. But I'm thinking about people who are maybe commuting sort of at that time. And I saw something about cracking the window slightly so you
Mm-hmm.
can get in all those different rays. So the glass actually will block some of the
Yes.
ray, the important like spectrum of light or different rays, right? So can you tell us about
Yeah.
that a little?
Yeah, I mean, if you get a spectrometer, like my window back here is open during this podcast, and I have Iris software running on my computer to protect my eyes. That's why I'm not wearing blue blockers, because I have software on my computer to protect my eyes, and I have the window open. But opening a window, light can travel really, really well through that window. So if you can't necessarily go outside to get that UVA, or I have my windows open all the time, even though it's cold. It's like in the 40s today and rainy. I still have the window open.
Nice. Well, here
um,
it gets so humid. And so,
yeah. Oh,
right
yeah.
now it's
That's,
probably in the 70s. I mean, it's definitely in the 70s and 80s over the next few days. It's like, come on, we just had this nice winter. It was like 60s, 70s, but yeah, it's 78 right now. And I mean, it's
ooh,
December. It's like, come on,
yeah.
I don't want it to be 78. You might, but it's hard to keep the windows
No.
open all the time. Okay, you don't.
Yeah, and I remember I've been doing this for a while, and when it was like August, September, my husband would get so pissed off because I'd have the windows open. It's like, dang it, it's so humid in the house, you
Yes.
can't do this. And so
Yes.
there was definitely some like we had to bargain a little bit at my house and compromise. So I did end up closing the windows and going outside more. But if I'm going to
Yeah.
be working in my office and he's not home, I will
Yeah.
keep the windows open, or I'll take everything outside and work. But if you are driving in a car, anytime I'm in a car, my sunroof is open. Unless it's pouring down rain, my sunroof is open and the windows are cracked, because I want to get that. I want to get as much light, as much natural light in my eyes and on my skin as humanly possible, because it's a strong signal for your body. And so I always have those open, even if it's like, it was like in the 30s yesterday. My daughter loves it. Like, she loves the cold. I think she's got even more like northern blood than I do somehow. But
Yeah.
she loves it. So I mean, it's fine, but I keep the sunroof open and the windows cracked all the time. Just because I want to get that natural light. I don't want fake light in my eyes or on my skin.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So talking about the fake light, so we know that we want the natural light as much as possible whenever we're outside, getting outside as often as we can, especially those times in the morning. But then what's so damaging besides, like you told us, that intensity on the phone early,
Mhm.
but what is so damaging about artificial light? And I know so many of us are, and myself included, have a hard time putting down our phones, or we're in front of screens all day. And then at night, it just is like, oh, I'm just going to scroll on my phone until I fall asleep. So, what are some of the dangers of doing this or some of the repercussions?
Yeah, I actually just put out a video this morning and I linked this particular study. I linked a few studies actually because people don't really want to believe the science is
Totally.
actually the science on light is pretty well established at this point, and the certification I just did, the quantum health coach certification, they gave us like a bank of studies so that we
Ooh,
have
wow.
them to use them as arsenal if we need them with clients and if we do presentations or like I do videos. But there have been several studies that have been done that show artificial light, blue light, this unnatural light, it actually does raise your blood glucose. And yeah, it
Look at
raises your blood
that.
sugar. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's a huge reason to why we don't want to be exposing ourselves to these artificial lights all the time, because even in the absence of food, it can still raise your blood sugar. Um, just like what I said about cortisol with looking at, the brightness of the sun in the morning versus the brightness of your phone. When you're looking at your phone, you're giving your body a signal that it's noon all the time. So I have
Mhm.
my phone. Oh, it's not on right now because I turned the filter off for a second. Let me turn it back on. I'll show you guys how I
Okay.
keep my phone all the time. Yeah. So this is color
Oh,
filters and
yeah.
it's
Wow. Very
red.
yellow. Yeah.
I, t-
Oh, it looks
I,
yellow
t-
for me, but yeah, that reddish
it's
amber
red. It's really red.
hue.
Yeah. It's amber.
Wow.
I had turned it off because I did a social media post and I wanted to make sure it didn't look crazy because I
You can't
can't
see it, right?
I can't see what things look like a lot of the time, but I don't really care. But on
Right.
iPhone, it's going through your color filters to just block out the blue. Um, and I turn the intensity down as well. So yeah, and I find that I'm not as addicted to my phone when I have that filter on. Like there's something
Wow.
addicting about that blue light. When I talked to Dr. Cruz, he really backed that up for me. But yeah, it definitely has this addictive quality to
Does
look
it
at that blue
stimulate
light.
dopamine? Is
It
that why?
does.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That anything that stimulates dopamine is going to be addicting to my knowledge. Is
Yep.
that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And you're actually so I have this light in my face right now because we're recording on video as well. And I also have I do have a window there, but that's not where the sun is. So it doesn't kind of
Mhm.
hit me. So you're actually making me think of changing around my office, even though I want this as a background. Like I think that I need to be facing the window so then I could just use the window as natural light and then open the door. I think that would be so much more beneficial for my circadian rhythm and just my light exposure in general, because I find that sometimes I'll be recording a lot and I turn off that light and my whole body's like, oh, it's like,
Yeah.
like the equivalent to taking your bra off, ladies, if you
Yeah.
can maybe relate to that. That's what it feels like when you get that light off of your face. It's so intense. So
Yeah.
it's artificial. So yeah.
Yeah, and those lights, the LED and the artificial lights, the fluorescent lights, the LEDs, all of those, they actually dehydrate you.
That's why I'm
A
sitting
good
here
friend,
drinking.
yeah, they will dehydrate you. We have what's called in our body easy water or exclusion zone water, and that depletes. There have been studies that shown that EMF and this artificial light depletes our easy water. And so my friend Carrie Bennett, her name on Instagram is Carrie B Wellness. I've done a couple podcasts with her. She's amazing. And I'm taking another course in January because I'm so addicted to all this quantum stuff. But she's
Yeah.
doing a course in January that I'm taking, but she's one of the world's leading experts on hydration and easy water, because we think about hydration as, and that's us in the keto carnivore world, obviously, like adding electrolytes, but she takes it to a different level of, it's not just about necessarily drinking more fluid or getting the perfect balance of electrolytes. But when we think about artificial light and we think about EMF and all these other things, they are draining our body battery in very simple terms. And so they're slowing down our mitochondria. And the reason why I think I gained so much weight in 2020 is because I was indoors on my phone, trying to amp up my social media profile, trying to make more money because I wasn't teaching in studio and I was on technology constantly. I was never outside. I was still afraid of the sun. I'm pretty fair skinned. I was afraid I'm going to get burned. and I was dehydrating the hell out of myself. I had the worst issues with my electrolytes at that time as well.
Oh.
And yeah, and my mitochondria was slowing down. So I was having issues with slowing down my mitochondria. So everything that I'm doing now is, am I adding electrons to my body or am I subtracting electrons? So when you're outside barefoot on the grass, we're gathering electrons, right? When we're under the sun, we're gathering electrons in the woods or on the beach. Those are things that we're doing to improve our mitochondrial health. I know I'm going to pay a price a little bit for being on my computer podcasting, but when we get off, I'll be outside for a little bit, even though it's cold and rainy. I have an infrared panel that I sit in front of, my EMR tech that I sit in front of that every day, because that's another way to build that exclusion zone water. And I've been doing cold therapy. That's another way to build easy water and force your body to create heat. And so again, I feel like we're all of us so hyper focused on the food because we want to improve our mitochondrial function, right? But just focusing on food is maybe only like 33% or so of what it takes to improve your mitochondrial function. So that's why I'm really on fire about a lot of this stuff right now.
Yeah, so good. So tell us more about well, I'm interested in the gathering electrons. So we need to take in more electrons. And why is that?
Because our cells are made up of protons, neutrons, or protons, neutrons, and electrons. And
Mhm.
when we have too many protons, which is what we get when we're looking at artificial lights, EMFs, when we're eating foods that aren't good for us, it's causing our mitochondria to slow down. And so we need electrons to balance out those excess protons. Those are
Wow.
causing inflammation or aging in our body. So the more electrons that we can take in, the earth has a charge, so that all we have to do is go lay on the earth, right, bare feet, and we're gathering electrons in. It's balancing out the excess protons. And so that's what I'm always doing when I'm outside barefoot every morning. That's what I'm gathering electrons. I'm kind of
Yeah.
taking the inflammation down in my body, because the root of so many of our problems is that inflammation, right? And
Yeah.
the earth, the magnetism of the earth is the strongest at sunrise and sunset. So you'll see on my stories every day, at sunrise, I'm barefoot in the yard. At sunset, I'm barefoot in the yard. And that's why, is because you can actually get more electrons at those different times of the day. So
Wow. That's so
yeah.
good. That's so good. I'm thinking, we've talked a little bit on Instagram about, I'm like, you're really making me want to go outside. But in Florida, we just have crabgrass and anthills everywhere. So
Yeah.
right now it's not so bad with the ants because it is winter. So, but I found places in my yard where I could just kind of stomp around for a little bit. Is there like a minimum amount of time that you can be out there?
Yeah, there have been some studies done that show 45 minutes, like total for the day, is enough to drastically reduce inflammation in your body. And
Wow.
so if you just go out 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, I always tell people quantum is like a small dose for a big effect. That's why it's called quantum.
Ah,
And so like light, you can get a quantum effect from just being out there a small amount of time. Being barefoot, same thing. It's just a fact that we have to actually do these things, but you don't have to go sit out there for 45 minutes straight. If you can, awesome. But if you can only do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and it's totaling up to like 45 minutes in your day, then you're going to get that effect of lowering inflammation in your body.
I love that. And I like the idea of being able to break it up because,
Hmm.
and that's even what I tell my clients with movement and exercise, because sometimes it's like they can't think about putting, a 30, 60-minute workout into their day. It's like, just do it in little chunks, little bursts. That's actually beneficial
Yeah.
for your blood sugar. And then I like the idea of also chunking the light and grounding exposure,
Hmm.
because then you're able to do it at different times of the day and it feels much more doable. And also it can break up that monotony of the day and also, get you outside at different times. It's like, I just have a few minutes. What a difference it makes in my mood, my energy levels, my just how I feel in my body if I get outside, if I go for a walk instead of, having an afternoon coffee. There's no coffee that can make you
Yeah.
feel like what getting outside makes you feel like. And especially I was even, I'm inspired by looking at your Instagram a lot and what you're doing. I'm like, God, I gotta, get on my game about, being outside. And so I'll take my lawn chair and I'll sit in the backyard. And after being out there, such an endorphin rush. It feels like you just had a really great workout. I mean, your mood, it like lights it up and you feel so good. And so I was basically sick for almost all of November, essentially,
Oh
and then
no.
even a little bit like this trickle into December. And so I started being like, okay, I'm getting a cold plunge, which we'll come back to. We'll talk about next.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to be getting outside. I'm getting the light in my eyes, and because all throughout that time, it was just constant work, all of September, October, and through November, constant work, constantly on the computer, and all my self-care fell out the window. I wasn't moving. I wasn't getting outside. I wasn't exercising. I was just being reactive. And that is always the way to set you up for, something to break, the straw to break the camel's back. And so then it's kind of like the scales will tip one way, and then we see, oh, wow, I really, I can't get away with this anymore. So we obviously have to keep putting these new things into our lifestyle. And I've been working on a lot of reducing stress by raising my HRV, activating the vagus nerve. And I'm sure that there's a lot of just overlap in a lot of these different things. So I love learning these other types of hacks to really just that quantum, like you're talking about, you do a small amount and you have this huge gain from it. So can you tell us about more of the cold therapy? Because I see you on your Instagram in this cold plunge. I bought one myself, and you're filling it with ice and you're in there for so long. So tell us about this, because I did it only once because I've been a little bit sick, and you're not supposed to go in when you are sick. It helps you prevent being sick. It helps improve your resiliency. But I still wasn't like, after I did that cold plunge that day, I had to lie down and take like a little nap. And I was like, oh, that was too much. So I paused it. I think I will be ready to go back in tomorrow, which I'm excited about and scared about, because like hyping yourself to get in is just so hard.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have worked with Dr. Corey Gasvini. I talked about him, and he's the one who really convinced me that I need to start doing cold plunging. And I can definitely hook you up with him. I know he would love to talk with you. He's a great guy. But he basically says cold therapy is really anything under your body temperature, and we're all going to respond differently to cold therapy. So for me, and we talked about this before we got on camera a little bit, I'm a northern haplotype. So my mitochondrial, my DNA is Northwestern European, right? So my ancestors evolved and healed through cold. Like, we were in the cold. That's how we lived. We're very cold adapted. Our mitochondria is loosely coupled, which means that when we are exposed to cold, our mitochondria come together and they create a bunch of heat. And so there's a ton of longevity benefits, of healing benefits for your body when you do cold therapy. And I'll tell you, I've been eating like kind of whatever I want. I'm not going to put this on my podcast, but I had Thanksgiving. I had my daughter's birthday for like 2 weeks. I just was like, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I don't care. And I have lost weight and been eating a ton more than I usually do. But because I'm doing my metabolism is like crazy. Like, I put food in my body and it just like burns it right off. I mean, it's insane. And my Oura ring kind of thinks I'm dying right now because my body temperature has gone up an entire degree.
Really?
And my resting heart rate has gone from being in the 50s and 40s to being in the 60s and 70s. And my HRV is great, but so
interesting. That's good for me to know, because I also have the Oura ring. And so that's very interesting about those changes. Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. So my metabolism is like on fire right now.
That's great.
But what we can do with cold therapy is essentially, again, speed up our metabolism. There's longevity benefits. My sleep is crazy. Like I have not been having wake ups at night, which I was
That's
having a
amazing.
couple, two or three at night, which weren't big. Like I would always go back to sleep. But now when I hit the pillow, I'm just like out for the night. So
That's so
I'm
good.
sleeping really deep and really hard. And yeah, so I started off with just doing a face dunking. So I would get a bowl of ice water and make sure it was about 55 degrees and just put my face in it. And I started doing this probably October, I want to say, because I knew winter was coming and I want to prep myself. And so that's what I tell people to do is start dunking your face in ice water for little bits of time. You don't have to do it for like an hour or anything, just like a couple minutes here and there. You can also dunk your wrists as well. If the face is like too much, start with your wrists and then go to your face. So I started doing that. And
So you
then I
just hold your
started
breath
doing,
under there, like for as
just,
long
I
as you
would just
can, kind
like,
of?
yeah, for as long as you can, and then come
Okay.
back up, take a breath
Hmm.
and go back down. And
Okay.
so that, is an easy way to ease into it. And then I have a cool fat burner vest, which is like you kind of pack your whole torso in this ice vest. Dr. Rimka told me about it. And so I started wearing that for like 30 minutes a day. Then I worked up to an hour a day. Then once I felt really comfortable with that, I got my plunge ready and I started with the water at like 59 degrees. And I would only stay in for a couple minutes. And I've now gradually worked it up to I can be in 40-degree water for like 8 minutes or so.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but I've like all of this has been really gradual. And so when you tell me that you did a plunge and you had to go take a nap,
Too
that
much too
means it was
soon.
too much too soon. Yeah, it would like wore your body out. So
Hmm.
I would back up a little bit, and especially because you're in kind of a warmer climate too,
Yeah.
your body is more acclimated to the warmer temperature. So you could
I
definitely
could
still
probably go
cold
in
plunge.
without ice. I mean, just
Yeah,
the hose water, it's probably a decent temperature enough for me to stay in without making it super, super cold. And
yeah,
I'll do the ice water on the face. That's another
yep,
thing that stimulates your vagus nerve. So I knew there was going
yep.
to be connections here. So that's
Oh
great.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
good.
definitely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do less, which feels better already because I have the tendency of going ham right from the start. I mean, I started my keto journey with a 3-day fast. So I was like, I'm going to start keto. Let's do an extended fast.
I
I've
get
never
it. I
fasted
get it.
before in my life and I have hypoglycemia, but this sounds perfect. So,
You're my soul sister because I'm freaking the same exact way. And
yeah.
it's hard for me to step back. Like
Hmm.
today, I didn't cold plunge because I actually got my cycle today.
Hmm.
Did not have any PMS this month because I really do feel it out. Like if I have a headache or I'm just not really feeling great, I'm like, today's not a cold plunge day. But
Yeah.
today I woke up and had gotten my cycle. And on your cycle, like the first couple days, like you're just super hypersensitive to pain. And so I was like,
Hmm.
today's not a cold plunge day.
No.
So
And I think that's a
yeah,
good thing to remember. So, just like how I'm a little bit sick, so it's not appropriate, it is a
yeah.
stressor on your body. So, these types
Mhm.
of therapies, like a cold exposure, is a stressor on your body, just like exercise. And so, if your body is strong enough to adapt to it, it's a hormetic stressor. But if it isn't, it goes into what's called eustress, which is EUSTRESS. And so that kind of brings us down, or it weakens our body because it can't adapt. So that's where you need to do, and this term comes from acro yoga, accurate self-assessment. So this,
Mhm.
like, assessing, okay, did I get a good enough sleep? Am I feeling run down? How did I feel after the last one? And that will guide you. And this is the same thing I tell my clients with fasting. So it's like,
Yes, I
are
was
you,
going to mention the fasting.
yeah,
Yeah.
because this is another thing that is a stressor. So it's like,
Mhm.
are we alternating if we feel like, oh, I feel like I've been fasting too much? I personally started getting really cold when I fasted. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to stop because this never used to happen. So I was just so cold. I was shivering. I'm like, this is obviously stressing my body. I feel the stress effect. So I dialed back on fasting as well. And so I haven't done a long fast in quite some time. And I don't feel like I need to at the moment.
Yeah.
And so I like to be able to read my body and be so dialed in that I'm like, cool, I think I'm going to try to start upping my movement now. And I'm going to start seeing maybe just a little intermittent fast and seeing how I feel. And always just assessing afterwards is so, so important to know if it's like, cool, my body adapted and got stronger. Just like with a workout, are you recovering from your workout, or is it like it's taken you down for 3 days? It's like, obviously that was way too much. So checking in is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, yeah, I've gotten into that same place with fasting before where it's like a little is good. So a lot is going to be even better. And so I need to just do a ton of this. And I have to be careful with all the biohacks that I do. Same thing,
Yeah.
like cold, like today, I was like, I want a cold plunge because when you do it, like once you get
Yeah.
out, you have this euphoric feeling. I mean, I can't even describe how amazing it feels when you do it. And I'm like, I want that. And I'm like, no,
Yep.
you need to give your body some rest time, because if you're always putting yourself in hormetic stress, then eventually it's not going to be hormetic anymore.
Totally. It's just
It's
going to
not going
tip
to
the
work.
scale. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. That's such great information. I did want to ask you, we're rounding out at about an hour here, and I could obviously talk to you all day about this stuff, and so much more. But I wanted to ask you about the water that you drink and this electron thing that you're doing to it. Can you explain that to me? And explain what it is for those who haven't seen your stories.
Yeah. So again, Carrie B Wellness is, and I can connect you with her as well. She
Sure.
is this water expert that I have done some education from her, and I'm taking another course with her and Corey. They're doing a course together in January. And she's one of the world's leading experts on easy water. And so she talks a lot about structured water, which is just a water that we used to drink, is structured by nature. So it's going to come
Mm.
over, rocks. It's going to come out of a spring. It has the necessary minerals that we need. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of us have so many issues with dehydration, is because the water that we're drinking, number one, it has fluoride in it. So it's depleting our iodine. There's so many problems with just drinking regular tap water. It's dead water. And so
Mm.
when I drink water now, I'm kind of a water snob. We get Mountain Valley spring water in glass delivered to the house in the 5-gallon jugs. And then I will take the water and put in some Quinton minerals, which are like seawater minerals. And then I put my infrared, I have a small little EMR tech device that I put on top of the water to structure it for about 20 minutes. Now you could do that with like sunlight, or you could use, special rocks, river rocks, to do the same thing. But I use the infrared light to actually structure the water so that my body can use it a bit more, and it
Mm.
actually is very hydrating. And I actually drink a lot less water now than I used to. So
Mm.
my body is holding on to these minerals quite a bit better, and it's helping to create more easy water in my body. So that's what I do with water now. I did do a deuterium depleted water, which is a whole other rabbit hole for about 3.5 months. I just stopped because Carrie and Corey were like, you don't want to do deuterium depletion for longer than like 3 months at a time. Like you want to do it maybe like once a year to get all the anti-cancer benefits, to get the mitochondrial benefits. But I did just do that for about 3 months as well. So we don't think about the water that we put in our body is very, very important, because it's, again, giving our body a signal.
Mm. Yeah, that's so good. I just was looking up our tap water on the ewg.org
Oh yeah.
tap water database, and so many contaminants that are well out of range and cancer causing type of
Yeah.
chemicals in there. And we use a Berkey filter. What do you
Yeah.
know about these? Not
I think
as
those are good. I
okay.
think they're good. Yeah. And there's another filter that Dr. Rimke recommends that you can get from Water and Wellness. I'm trying desperately to get Robert Slovak on my podcast. He's one of the world's leading experts in water, that if you haven't listened to any of his stuff and you want to learn about water, go listen to his stuff. Cause like
Okay.
he's amazing. I've learned so much from him. But yeah, I mean, now I know what's in our tap water. We don't have a whole house filtration system,
Yeah,
but
we
I have
don't either.
filters on all the shower heads. And if I'm going to take a bath, I have, Crystal Quest is a company that I've used for filters. And there's a little filter I put on my bathtub. And when I fill up my cold plunge, I also filter that hose water with the little attachable filter into the cold plunge. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I definitely
Yeah.
need to get on that. I don't have that at all. And I know I'm just like bathing in this water. I'm like, oh, is this good? And I did think about putting at least some, I don't know if I should put like iodine in the water just to sort of offset some of the fluoride, but I don't really know. I guess that would be too band-aidy, like
I
not
would
a
just
really good
filter it.
approach.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just filter it. And then if you
Mhm.
wanted to structure it, you could also do that. And I use
Mhm.
hydrogen tablets as well. I want to do a podcast on hydrogen really soon, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll pop a hydrogen tablet into my water as well. And I love those.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I see some people doing that. Like I went out with a bunch of biohackers and I was like, oh, are those your digestive enzymes? They're like, no, it's hydrogen tablets. And we're like swapping things. And so yeah, I love that. So cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there anything else that you wanted to share that you're feeling super passionate about lately?
Well, I just think the importance of evening and having your lighting environment right at night is
Mm,
just as important as starting that circadian signal for the day. And
yes.
so I was really resistant to wearing blue blockers and to kind of changing my night environment because I was really addicted to like the Netflix and it's just like comfort, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we have really, my husband thinks I'm insane, but we've really changed the house quite a bit so that the only light bulbs that we really have are incandescent or they're blue blocking bulbs. And as soon as sunset hits, I'm wearing the yellow tinted blue blockers. And then a couple hours later, like 7 p.m. or so, I'm wearing the red blue blockers. And that really has made a huge difference in my sleep.
Mhm.
Huge difference. And we're working on getting the house hardwired right now, but we also turn the Wi-Fi off at night as well. And my HRV has gone up, my sleep has gotten better, deeper. And I think that's another thing that people could do if they're looking to get into some of this circadian biology and try to fix their circadian rhythms. If they're having issues sleeping or if they're having a high cortisol at night, the first thing they want to do is fix their morning routine. But the second thing they really want to do is make sure they're keeping their house dim at night and really investing in a good pair of blue blockers and just keeping that environment at night in a much better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And at night, we use like Himalayan salt lamps. You can light
Hmm.
candles. We have a red light bulb in the bedroom, and that is like, it's a cool vibe anyway. So
Yeah,
all
it
these
is.
night lights are, you turn on, you always want to start by like turning off overhead lights at night and maybe only
Yes.
like a really dim lamp or something that you have, or like a stove light. And there's so many lighting devices out there now. They have these even like, what do you think about like red LED strips?
I haven't really used it. I mean, I use my EMR tech and I
Yeah.
turn that on to illuminate the home most of the night. I haven't
Hmm.
really tried the LED strips, but I know that there's some cool options out there.
Yeah.
Essentially at night you want the light to be down, like you said, turn off the overhead lights and put more lighting on the floor. So I wonder if you could put the red LED strips like on the floors, kind of like a movie theater
Yeah.
at your house
Yeah.
at
And
night, if that would help.
you can even put them like under a desk or like under
Oh,
a
cool.
cabinet, and then it kind of shines downward and kind of just lights that area. So I just thought it would be fun for, a fun vibe. We've used like
Yeah.
red holiday lights, and or we have orange ones around Halloween and Thanksgiving, and then we have red ones in like February. So we've used those too, but you can get creative with the lights so you're just not so exposed. And I know you have a TV cover, you have all the things. So
Yeah, we do.
yeah.
Yeah, you can buy, it's called Shop Wakan, Wakn. He has a red TV cover and there's also an amber one as well. My husband doesn't love those. He gets mad when I put those
Oh
on, but
my
I'm like,
gosh.
if we're going to have this on at night, this is going to be on. And then we turn off all the we try to have no TV after like 7:30 at night, which
Yeah.
has been a hard adjustment because we love our shows. But, my daughter, she started having issues at night where she was just getting really amped up. And this
Hmm.
happened after the time change where she was just like super hyper at night and didn't want to sleep. And I'm like, she's so sensitive. I'm like, we have to quit the technology. And so now I have a little reading light, and her and I have just been reading a lot of books together. Like we just finished The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and she wanted to start The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy last night. So we're reading that one now. But
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a
So
good
good.
opportunity to get back in touch with, I mean, when we get back in touch with nature, we get back in touch with our families, we get back in touch with what's really important instead of being so addicted and to these devices all the time.
Yeah.
And you realize once you kind of step back from it, number one, the benefits for your health, but number two, the connection that you're missing with your loved ones and how you can really, really bring that back into your life and how good that really feels.
It's so good. I love that. We were during the pandemic, we were playing a lot of games. My wife and I were playing. So it was just, we would go outside, we'd turn on a little strip of dim lights and we just play different games. And it was really fun. And it's like gets you thinking, and it's not a screen. And yeah, so, and then reading together. I love that. I love all those things. And and
Yeah.
sometimes just sitting outside, listening to music because we have a screened in patio. It's just
Oh,
really beautiful.
nice.
And one of my favorite things to do, which we haven't done in a while, which I'll have to get back to, is we would sit out on the screen patio with no lights on, and it would just feel like we were camping, and it felt
Oh, nice.
so calming. It felt like almost like how maybe a weighted blanket would feel. Just it felt like you felt so calm and everything felt so peaceful because you realize that light is a stressor on your body at
Mm-hmm.
night. And so when it turns off, again, it's just like, oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
realize that how much it was affecting me. And so many times I'll go to someone's house in the evening. I'm like, can I just turn this light up? And I'll turn the light off. Everyone's like, oh, that's so much better. I'm like, yeah, I know.
I do the same thing. And I bring my blue blocker glasses to people's houses now if I go at night and they're like, what is up with your glasses? I'm like,
don't worry.
Do you really want?
You don't want to know. Don't make me get my mouth tape.
Exactly.
I love it. Awesome. Well, this podcast, I mean, I have thousands of post-its here. I took so many notes. There's so much good
Aww.
information in this. And I feel like so many things that people can really just start doing. And so much of this is free. And so much of this is just, hey, we need to get back in touch with nature. The further we get from nature, the sicker we will be. And so all of these types of hacks, it's like, yeah, people didn't need to do this hundreds of years ago because they were outside, they were just living their lives. But now our lives bring us indoors. And it's like, how can we find that balance of bringing the ancestral wisdom and that connection with nature to our modern lives? So we're not, living off the land like cave people. It's like, that's not going to work either. So how do we bridge that gap and make it work for us? So that's where, these glasses come in and, cold plunges. It's like, people didn't need to do this, but it's really cool that we have access to it. And thank you so much for sharing everything, and tell us where we can find you and where people can listen. You have a great, YouTube and podcast and Instagram.
Yeah, thank you. So I am pretty active on Instagram, and it's carnivore.yogi. And then I have a YouTube channel. You can just search for Carnivore Yogi. And then I have a podcast called the Carnivore Yogi Podcast. And so those are the best ways to find me and see what I'm up to.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, you'll definitely want to follow Sarah and be inspired by her consistency with these types of modalities. And it really, I think, even just showing, I love that you show it on your stories, because it's like, I need to get outside. You help everyone hold themselves accountable. And the more people who are doing this, the better. It's just such a ripple effect on everyone's health. And I'm really excited to be able to start incorporating more of this into my routine and seeing what the effects are for me. So thank you so much for sharing, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.